Welcome, BBCers, to episode number 139 of the Broken by Concept podcast, the number one solo queue and motivational podcast in League of Legends. Curtis, we talked we had lots of clips last week.
A little bit too many.
Maybe a bit too many, especially for our Spotify listeners. So we're going to go back to, just doing like one clip, looking at our gameplay.
I think it's good to do one clip every week. And guys, we need help. We need help with a little segment. We've got Nathan's mailbag. I mean, ideally it would be Curtis's clips with the alliteration there, but it doesn't make sense because it's not going to be my clips. Curious clips. Let's get into the details with Nathan and Curtis. We're just spitballing here. I don't know.
It's going to be short and sharp.
Short and sharp. So let us know your suggestions. We're going to do one clip a week. We thought it'd be really cool to do one clip a week. And maybe we can, if someone's out there wants to do a little jingle for us, if someone could put something together, maybe we can put that in there as well.
It will have to come from you because you know how I do like the Nathan's mailbag jingle.
Right.
It's like, welcome to Nathan's mailbag. It's like, so then we'll like start off the
Someone's
podcast.
going to steal something from my voice in something and make a little jingle.
Yeah.
All right.
So
well, we need ideas.
That's a challenge to our community.
It's a challenge for our community.
All right, Curtis. So the first clip that we got here. So we'll always try our best to, paint the picture for our Spotify listeners, and we'll probably get better at this over time.
Okay.
But we just think it's so important to get into the details of actual clips from our gameplay and our clients' reviews because they're just so helpful because everyone can relate to these.
And that's what one of our big BBC philosophies is. Let's get into the details, showing people how to get into the details, I think, is a really great thing to do.
Because it's funny how, this podcast, we talk about that, and this is a pure talking podcast, right? And one of my mantras is like, especially in the Sultan stuff, right? Let's not talk about the game unless the game's on my screen.
Right.
Right? Which is really contradictory to the whole podcast that we've done 100
Cancel the podcast. Can
it. All right. So this is a clip from one of my games that we're about to see here. Okay, so what I wanted us to do, Curtis, so this is from a jungle perspective. So I'm going to have questions from you from a mid lane perspective.
So to caveat, if we do clips, right, the way I want to do this from now on is, I haven't actually seen this. So if I bring a clip, I'm not going to show it to you. So this is going to be a live reaction. Okay, I haven't seen this before.
We're going to learn about mid-game here, guys. And specifically, how do we... Let's pose the question. Let's explore the question about how to improve our mid-game. How do we get better at knowing what's next? We talk about what's the next objective.
What's next?
This is a really helpful tool as well that we say to our clients about, people ask, how do I prevent autopiloting? If you're just getting into the habit of thinking about what's next, even if you're wrong, it's a good way to start building, thinking about, okay, testing things,
having
test
a crack.
and learn, have a crack and failing.
Yep.
All right, so this is let me get on my glasses so I can see here. So this is a Jarvan game that I played earlier this week. So for the Spotify listeners, I'm against a 4-0 Caitlyn. She is, 100 almost 10 CS a minute, 11 minutes. She's popping off, and they're about to break my bot tower, and my cast is dead. So
in your Jarvan, you're 1-3 right now, level 7.
And my teams were down 3 kills, and I had basically pretty much losing lanes except for mid.
Mid's doing pretty well. You got a 2-0 Syndra mid, farming 10 CS per minute as well.
Yeah. So, in terms of context for like mid game, would you agree, Curtis, that mid game is sort of starts when the first tower is broken?
That's a really good question. Actually,
when does it actually start? When lane phase is over?
Yeah, it's when lane phase is over, and that's typally when the first tower breaks. That's correct.
That's like a general rule.
Generally, yeah.
So, we're at like 11 minutes in the game here. All right, so the great thing about this clip as well, just an extra thing, we're going to talk about mid-game, but just breaking down the narrative as well was like, everyone's like, you got to play through bot. Bot's the meta. Bot. If you have a fair bot lane, you win the game, And again, this is a 4-0 Caitlyn who's just out of control. And my Kai'Sa is just really far behind. So, let's play out this clip here. So, the enemy, look, bot, see, they've just broken bot tower. Okay, so
to give context again to the listeners, the enemy bot lane just broke the bot tower.
Yeah. And I have 0 towers on the map at all.
So as in, your team hasn't broken any towers.
Yep, and Herald's still up as well.
Okay, and we're 11 minutes and 46 seconds in game.
So, Curtis, what does the enemy bot lane do when they break this? Really fed, it's a Caitlyn. When they break bot tower, what do they do typically?
Yeah, typically they're going to swap either mid or top, depending on what they want to do, but usually mid, I would say, more often than not.
And with Herald, the next objective, they're going to go and control top side, right? That's sort of like what the next play would be.
You would assume that they're going to play top, play for Herald, and try and keep snowballing the game.
Because Dragon's not up.
Yep.
All right, so I go topside here, Curtis, and I'm coming here, just coming to clear my camps. I want you to focus on what my support's doing here, Curtis.
Okay, so you got a support who's moving onto the top side. Looks like he's hovering around the Rift Herald, hovering around mid now. Looking for a bit, it looks like maybe hovering the Syndra mid.
All right. Now, this is going to be half of the Spotify listeners, but I want people who's watching on YouTube right now, think about in this moment right now, what is the next objective? What's the next play?
From your perspective?
Yep, from my perspective.
Well,
I think to see what you would think here as well.
What would I do?
Yeah. Again, I want to get the mid lane's perspective right
now. Well, again, I'm not in the position of a jungler, very often. So I'm usually the Syndra in this situation. But trying to put myself in your shoes, I would say, okay, this is a very niche thing that you could actually do. But if it were me, I would actually leave my Syndra mid and then trade off the Rift and then just trade Rift for farm on bot side. And then something like that.
Curtis is a very smart League of Legends player, guys. All right. So, again, notice my Rel right now as well. So, Rel's moving to the top side. And we know the enemy bot lane's going to top side as well. So, she's running into them. So, you see right now I'm pinging. What am I pinging there? I'm saying I'm paying back.
Back on the Rift.
Back on the Rift. And I'm saying give Herald. I'm telling Griff, and look at my pings. I'm aggressively pinging the bot tower. And this is a really
on my way bot.
On my way bot. And I'm going to do more pings in a moment. But look at the map state running ahead, guys. Just thinking about how far ahead in the game I'm thinking. My bot lane, guys, the minions are not even basically at my tier 2 for...
Yeah, bot lane was all the way shoved out to tier 2. Your Kaiser's catching the wave at tier 2 all the way in bot. Yep.
So I'm thinking about the whole play a minute ahead, guys. And this is just how important it is in terms of thinking about what's next, applying that rule. What's next? So I'm hitting here. And again, look at my Rel right now. So look at my Rel. She's now even walking. I'm spam pinging her and saying, guys, bot.
Yep. Making it very clear to your team that you want to give the Rift possible. And you want to play the bot.
And it's great. And you know how people always say in terms of junglers, like, Nathan, how do I know when to farm and when to, gank and pressure? I've just used this whole opportunity to farm my entire jungle whilst I'm waiting for caster to pressure bot. This is what I call maximum efficiency of jungling, and I'm going to be able to play the map and win in the map as well. So I've literally just cleared my Krugs, my Raptors, my Wolves, clearing down. I'm spamming it on my way. Curtis, I'm going to pose a question to you now, right? If I didn't ping that, right, what would my Rel probably have done there?
Yeah, he might have, maybe Rel could have looked for that play with the Alawi on top side onto that Caitlyn, because Caitlyn actually swapped to top.
Yep.
And so Rel might have hovered and tried to force a play with that Alawi top. And we know that the enemy jungler, if he's any good, would probably be hovering top right now, and they could easily get counter ganked.
Yep.
And that would lose that 2v2.
If I'm there, do we win 3v3?
No.
No, I'll just lose the game if I don't kiss the Herald, right? So this is, if you really think about it logically, this is my only play to
make. It's your only option.
Because I'm behind. I don't really have the luxury. I have to I'm applying a principle here, guys, of just trading. Okay?
Giving an objective for something else.
All right, everyone's on the same page with my team. Yep. Rel's now bot. We're coming down bot.
So we're trading that Rift Herald. We're going. So they're on top side, we're now on bot side.
Yep.
Clearing a bit of vision.
They know that we're here.
Yep.
Fiora's now, okay, she's like, okay, she's struggling, she's a little bit HP. She refuses to give up CS. Bam, we kill the Fiora. And then plates are still up, guys, 13 minutes. Look at how much farm Kaiser's going to get here, Curtis.
What I want to really highlight here, so what just happened again for the Spotify listeners, Nathan, traded off that Rift. The enemy got Rift Herald. He dove bot. Here. So the Fiora on the enemy, the opposing top laner, they swapped lane assignments. The AD carrying support went top, and the Fiora now went bot. Now, one thing I want to highlight, in our last episode, we spoke about, sometimes not making a play is the better thing to do. That Fiora, that's a game-losing play right there. That Fiora, instead of just giving that bot tower, maybe even farm Krugs or go to Raptors or do something else, give that tower. Don't try to defend the tower.
She might get sneak and go gank mid or something. Mid laners would hate that.
Because that, again, and right there, I talk a lot about identifying your role in a composition. That Fiora is not really, she has to just kind of relax right now. She's been traded off, right? And by trading off means, her jungler's playing elsewhere. So she needs to minimize and maybe go down a little bit of farm. Accept reality. That's the situation that she's in right now. So I just thought I would highlight that from the enemy's perspective, what the Fiora could have done better here. And it's not like this is, what I want to really say here, is that what you're doing right now, it's not like you're winning the game from this, but you're at least not losing the game. Right? That's the way I interpret it.
Because if I go top, I lose the game.
That's right. If you go top and you try to
playing
fight that
into
rift,
their strong side,
you lose the game. But if you go bot, you're buying time, right? You're buying time,
collecting gold,
and creating potential options. Okay. Like, it's not like you're winning the game here. I want to really make that clear. It's not like you're thinking, oh yes, this is great. I can now go
it's
bot.
not just one magical play.
It's not like one magical formula. It's like, okay, I'm elongating the game. I'm extending it. I'm creating potential opportunities.
The other narrative I want to break down here as well, Curtis, just, demonstrate. I'll keep playing out the clip because just to show how much gold my caster collects. I even get the Krugs and everything like that. I just trade so much gold here. What is a general rule of thumb, any video or something that people say? Don't gank or don't play to your losing weak lanes. My caster is my weakest member, but it doesn't matter. This is why we say we got to get specific. General statements don't help in League of Legends, guys.
Because what's the alternative here? It's like, okay, I listened to what a coach said, and they said don't play to weak side. So what are you going to do? Play hover mid?
What do I do? Dive
What
mid?
are you going to do? Dive a Tristana mid? It's not going to happen, right? With the team hovering. So your only option is to play around that losing bot side in this specific moment. And this is why we talk about getting into the details. Also, sorry to pause one more time. A question we get is things like, Curtis and Nathan, what do I do when I have two losing sides? And the enemy bot lane get their tower and swap, and again, we can't answer that question until you show us the specifics of what is happening right now, Like, I really like how this is a great example of like, in this specific situation, you actually have to play towards your losing side. And, so again, we wouldn't be able to answer that question without kind of getting into these specifics.
There's other situations where my top lanes actually win, or like they're really strong, or I have kill threat.
You can 2v3 or something.
Like I can quickly maybe get the AD carry with the support wards. Like you can get really creative.
You could lane gang top when the AD carry and support swap top. You could lane gang top and maybe make a creative pick if you have a really strong top laner. That's a potential play.
All right, so that's so then they panic. The great thing about what I've done there as well is like they panic make a play top because
they feel obligated to dive top because you've dove bot type thing, and then they mess up and fail a dive.
I mean, Kaylin's still she's still 5-0 at this point.
Yeah, she's very fair.
Hard. So that's really all I wanted to really cover for this. Just to and what I want to now move into now is talking about how to improve the mid game. How do I? Because there's people who have lots of questions here. And just for context as well, we end up winning this game in like 24 minutes, by the way.
I'm going to criticize your play though a little bit here.
Okay.
Go back to when you did that decision. I want you to go back to when you're coming out of base off that reset. Okay. Even further back here. I think your comms are late. So for me, my expectation, I'm already saying give Rift now.
I see. Yep.
Because what are you thinking about? There's nothing else for you to be thinking about. You already know what's going to happen here. When you're coming out of base here, you should be already saying give Rift now. So Nathan, you called it. Look at when you called it. You didn't type give Rift
until
you're on Raptors.
Yeah.
Something easily could have happened on top side here. So for me, when I'm playing and I'm in my lull state, this is what is lull state usage. This is the lull state coming out of base. This is 25, 30 seconds slow.
That just goes to show that's how slow my brain maybe works.
Because what are you doing here? You're literally just watching the play while you're dead.
Yeah.
This entire time.
No, I'm problem solving. That's what I'm doing.
But it's so obvious, right? If this is a Master Plus client, for me, my expectation is that I'm thinking, well, what else you should, I actually expect that you're already pinging back on Rift now. Give Rift, give drag. This is the time to do it.
We already know we're going to be trading.
You actually get a little lucky here. You get lucky right now that Rel doesn't make a play mid. Your pings are actually 20, 30 seconds late.
Yep.
So again, nitpicking, it's still good, but there's room for improvement. But that is the difference in my opinion. Again, like we're talking nitpicks here, little details, like that is something that I think is relevant. And in this specific situation, you get away with it, but in another situation, you might not, right? So there's something to consider.
What's next?
That's right.
Really, really helpful, guys. And okay, so there's a couple of questions people want to ask now. It's like, okay, Nathan, what happens if Roll doesn't listen to my pings there? She just dies and then, goes on and just does her own thing. That's just going to be the reality. And the key thing that I want you guys to do is just a thought experiment, be critical and don't just, because it's very easy to just think about, that play's a bad play because I can't rely on my teammates to follow my pings. But again, just breaking it down. Sometimes it's the only option.
I think we
and
just simplify it, Nathan, and we bring it back to Cupcake's ace mentality.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the best play. You come out of base, you recognize the best players, give rift, trade it off, dive bot, right? Communicate the best play, which is ping, type give, the combination of body language plus pings plus typing, and then E, embrace reality. So if your team decides to whatever reason try to contest rift, you now have to think, okay, what does embracing reality, or what does that look like here? That might be okay, a poor plan executed well is better than a great plan executed poorly, right? Or it could be let rel die, no big deal, I'm still going to path bot, doesn't matter. Then we're getting into the details of like, what is the best way to embrace reality in this specific situation? Sometimes it might be though, contest that rift. Say Kaiser was there and you're like, okay, well I have no choice. They're going to contest that anyway. I'm a 1-3 Jarvan. I can't do anything bot by myself. But it may be and again, without getting too complicated, you could be a farm oriented jungler and say, actually letting my Kaiser rel die and I'm playing a carry jungler might even be the better play in terms of embracing reality. So there's that. And then I also think there's the element of, you can walk away from that game guilt-free.
That's right.
Right? If you did that, if you communicated, you did everything you could.
I'm very happy to lose the game here and just move on to the next
That's
game.
right.
Because again, this game's really a really knife's edge. Like, it's going to be really hard if we don't make this play bot. And that's the key thing, because people get really obsessed about their good plays that they think the team should be doing, and it actually affects the rest of their game. But I'm very, very comfortable to let go of Rel not coming to this very quickly. And that takes, a lot of time to, I think, to develop that. But I think that, the embrace reality part of the end is so important.
Embracing reality.
Because having a play in your mind that doesn't go the way you expect, I see this destroy players and tilt them.
Shout out Coach Cupcake for that amazing framework, the ace mentality. I use it all the time. It's actually a very, very good
Love that
framework to break down plays like this. I actually want to go even a little bit deeper here. So I had something on my mind right there. I forgot what I was talking about, complimenting Coach Cupcake. I forgot. We'll come back to it. God damn it.
All right. So, so I think that's great. Any other questions people do you think would ask
so
about this, Curtis?
again, okay. Yeah, it's about the specific, but it's not about the specific. If you're having a crack here, and let's say...
so that's what I wanted to talk about now is like, okay,
improving
how do
on
I
this.
learn? How do I learn?
How do I learn from this?
Yes.
Right. So I spoke about this in my recent video, actually, on the art of saying no, where the key here is visualizing alternatives. So let's say, for example, Nathan decided to come out of base and contest Rift.
I thought we could contest Rift. That was the best
your
play in my
conclusion.
mind.
We're going back to the ace framework.
Yeah.
The A, acknowledge the best play. He thought the best play was, you know what? I've got a Fed Syndra. I'm going to actually try and contest Rift Herald here and win the 3v3 or 4v4. Then he can get into the details. He can look at that. And then after in the review, if it doesn't pan out, he can say to himself, okay, let's go back here. This is obviously a painful experience. Let's say they get aced on the Rift Herald. They get aced and lose the Rift Herald. He can say, okay, what are the other alternatives here? Could I have given this Rift? Could I have contested it in a different way? Could I have then pinged it off and gone bot side? We can start to then visualize what are some of the alternative ways we could have gone through here, and visualize, where visualization really comes into play there, and curiosity.
The only way you can even begin that exercise is you have to have an idea of the play in the mid game. The key,
you got to start with a hypothesis. That's right.
This is how I learned how to do this, guys. Because remember, I talk all the time. I was a struggling diamond player. I would never know how to do this when I was a struggling diamond jungler. I aggressively lost games for my team by aggressively pinging and failing.
Yes.
It's so important, guys. Don't be afraid of your teammates
to fail.
I mean, guys, if you've seen the abuse that I've got on my journey in my solo queue games from diamond to challenger.
Yep, Nathan was called Nathan Bot.
One of the worst solo queue junglers on the server is my reputation. Even for some people, that reputation lasts today. But I learned this way. I'm very happy to just int the game, move on, but the learning, that's the key mindset, guys. Fail and learn. Do not worry about getting flamed by your teammates, because that's the other thing people are really afraid of.
Afraid of failure.
They can understand this and be like, that sounds great, Nathan, but when they get into the moment, they're like, I'm not going to call that pork because I'm not sure, and I don't want to get flamed if I make that play.
And I have a philosophy on this, is if you're ever unsure about a play, right? And okay, we get a little bit complicated because again, we have the limit testing phase and the conservative phase. If you're in the limit testing phase, then do it. If you're ever unsure, do it.
Just
You got
send
to
it,
do
man.
it. You got to send it, and because you will improve a hell of a lot
much
faster. Way faster.
And I think this is actually the biggest thing. People just get completely stuck in terms of their rank because they're never trying to push to the next level.
They're not willing to fail and make that executive decision or make a hypothesis. Because again, the comfortable thing here is waddle out a base, like
just follow my roll.
Just do a full clear and see what happens.
Yeah, that's right. That's what a lot of players would do here.
Yeah, and then see what happens. And you can win like that sometimes. You just get lucky. The stars can align, but that's not going to win you games in the long run, right? And this actually ties into one of my favorite things, which is, Nathan, if you can't clearly identify in the post-game review why you win or lose a fight, there is a big problem. Right. So, for example, Nathan, if let's say, for example, like, and this is legitimate. This is like actually what happens with there's people out there in the MLA, and I have to call them out on a daily basis. I'll say, okay, tell me why you lost this fight. And so, I don't know. Just guess. Just have a guess. Have a crack. Tell me why. But a lot of the time, Nathan, in the review, they just don't even have a crack. They don't even begin to hypothesize why they lose that fight. It's in their mind, it's so overwhelming that they don't even come up with a baseline hypothesis. What I say is, okay, come up with anything. It could be completely wrong. Have a crack at being curious about it. Like, you might make one observation. One observation is better than 0 observations. Because at least with one observation, you can build on that in the future. Right? It goes back to the analogy we used last week, which was like planting the seed. You got to start somewhere. There's got to be a seed there to grow and water. If there's nothing, you're not going anywhere.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That's right. Use a basketball analogy. Okay, before you got another clip here?
Yeah, so I'm going to go into another clip.
All right, well, Nathan, we're breaking our rule here. We're meant to only do one clip a week.
I know, but this is a short one.
Okay, you finish this and I'll talk about my
This ties into it. All right. So now this is an example of the opposite end of showing how easy the game can get confusing mid-game and when you're not thinking about what's next.
All right, so we must have some pretty intelligent listeners here, Nathan, all right? So do we believe we have intelligent listeners, Nathan? Are they able to listen and understand this?
We're going to try our best to explain it, right? Okay. All right. So this is one of my clients. This is Master Tier. Belveth. So it says in the map state here. So they're in a pretty good position here. They're Normal Samira.
So it's a strong Belveth. He's got Kraken Slayer.
Yep.
Level 11.
With 17 kills, 15.
Pretty even game.
All right, so let's apply the principle here right now in terms of, what's next. So right now he's sort of hovering mid, getting a push on mid. His Aurelia's dead,
so his
and
top lane is dead.
Soul's in base.
His mid lane is in base and his top lane is dead.
Yeah. So it comes to help push mid here.
With his AD carrying support.
Look at the movement from Belveth here. What do you think the Belveth's trying to achieve here, Curtis?
He's trying to posture very aggressively and just maybe, it looks like he's trying to look for something.
Look for something, which could be what? What do you think?
Nothing. There's nothing that can happen here.
There's nothing that can happen, right? So, I can tell instantly.
You can tell this guy's lost.
This guy's lost right now. I'm sure you can tell this
straight away,
just by movement,
just by movement,
right? So right now he's walking up to siege the mid tower or something. Like
he has no idea what he's doing. Yeah,
Samira and Belveth melee, they're full melee champs. The enemy team's all missing. And they need to attend to side lane. So I was telling my Soul 2 member here, okay, let's again explore the exercise of what's next. The next objective, sort of similar, is like top tower. So just wait for Aurelia to pressure. Then you got the move. Norse is coming to sweep, control top side. Yep. The principle that will be really helpful for you guys in the mid game is always have a side of the map that you're thinking about controlling.
I think this ties to win conditions and who's your strong member. That can be a really good, I think it's a good starting point. It's a good baseline reference point.
And that's going to always help. So every time you're struggling in the mid game, just think about which side of the map should I be controlling.
I even keep it even simpler. For me, in LoL states, what I tell clients in mid game is you should know 2 things or 3 things at all time. What is your role in the composition? What is the win condition? And where is your team?
Love it.
If you know those 3 things,
you can do a lot.
You can do a lot.
Yeah.
Think about that. All you gotta do is where they are. Just know where they are.
So right now, my Salty member here is probably not thinking about his team, where they are at all.
I can already tell this player has not used his LoL states.
No.
Straight away. I can already tell this is a LoL state problem.
So the narrative that he had here, we actually broke this down. The narrative he had is he thought his role in this mid game was to get mid push and protect the Samira and the Nautilus because he's scared they're going to get caught and die. Look at
what is the enemy composition?
So the enemy composition here is...
Do they have engage? But you can ping. And,
I think regardless, it doesn't matter. Like the moment this wave is shoved, there is nothing else to achieve.
You can hold it temporarily.
Yeah, that's right. Just for this wave.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then you need to be thinking about what's next, right? Well, the idea is you actually know what's next.
You already should know way before this. Yeah. Like you should already know what you're doing holistically. He knows what he's doing step 1, but he doesn't know what he's doing step 2, step 3, step 4 here.
So now
he has no context of the game holistically.
And now the entire team is confused. So you see how Samira and Nautilus is walking up, they're hitting tower, everyone's confused, and now
there's no direction.
We'll explain what
this
happens
is where
here,
people get picked, by the way.
Yeah. And watch this. Now we've got a really lazy recall here. Just sitting on a ward. We'll do a commentary. Nautilus went for a hook there, by the way, because Nautilus doesn't know what to do. No one knows what to do. So
his team basically was just diddling around mid, and while his team was in base, and because this Belveth was kind of hovering around mid, he baited in his team kind of through body language, and then they all died mid.
Yeah,
that's essentially what happened.
And there we go.
So when looking at this, there's two things that I asked my client. First thing I say, okay, I'll go to the lull state. I'll say, what were you thinking here? Like, what's your perception? Like when you look at the game state and when you're in the game, what did you see? Like what was your perception of the game, right? And then what I say is, okay, walk it through for me. Now, then the client either says, okay, I either wasn't using my lull state, I don't know, I wasn't thinking. So then it's already end of review, that's a lull state problem. Or number 2, okay, I was using my lull state and then okay, this is how I was directing, this is how I thought about, and then we can refine the way where they're directing their attention. This is why lull state usage is a very important learning objective for most people. Getting them to even just start using the lull states.
Think about something. What's
something.
Do next.
Having it again. Where is your team?
It's the fastest way you learn.
Your team? It's a good starting point, and then you can play around with it. You can start playing around with those concepts, and then try shit. But you can tell he's lost. I actually did a review with a Kassadin, and I could tell immediately in the first few minutes of the lane, the Kassadin didn't have reference points. You can tell they were lost. They didn't know what they were trying to do.
Did they have an idea of what they wanted to do?
No, they didn't. I could tell that within 3 minutes, few minutes. I said, well, this person, I can tell he doesn't really know what he wants to reset on. He doesn't really know what he wants to do with waves. He doesn't really know what is he trying to achieve in this lane, holistically. You can tell it very, very clearly. And what actually happened, because in the review, it felt like I was missing something. I'm like, is this really it? Was this right? Really, was I right? So what I did, I actually sent the Kassadin review to my high elo Kassadin player in the MLA, and I said, can you take a look at this? Am I right? When you look at this, does this player look like he has no reference points? And he's like, Curtis, you are absolutely spot on. I know exactly what this guy's feeling. He's playing the champion, but he has no idea what he's trying to achieve. And that is the power of having intention with what you play. If you're playing Kassadin, okay, I need to get tier early on. Then I got to get to my 6, and then I got to get to my boom. And then you have this plan, and it's okay, it's at least you have a reference point, something to a North Star that you're kind of aiming for that gives you some semblance of what to say no to and what to say yes to. You can tell straight away it's similar. This guy's lacking reference points. He doesn't have an overarching kind of something that's directing him in the long term. He's just kind of reacting to what is happening in front of his face.
And when you're in that, he's basically jumping in on board with the Nautilus, who's also confused, and the Samira, and then they just get caught and die, Because the moment you don't know what you're doing, the rest of your team is not going to know what they're doing.
If you're ever lost at a point in the game, and you don't clearly know what your role is in the composition and what you need to be doing holistically, you need to review it.
Absolutely. Those are the best moments.
They're the best moments. You got the end goal for everyone in the solo queue journey, right? We're talking end goal, end game, right? Challenger. What that actually looks like and feels like is that every minute in the game, you know exactly, you have a clear picture of what your role is, what you need to be doing, what the win con is. It's complete clarity when you play your best games, you would have complete clarity at every moment in the game. That's the end goal.
I want people as well to not get confused when we say, because then they might be thinking there must be an answer in every situation. Sometimes your role or job is to not die and wait for your teammates spikes. Sometimes it's literally as well, what's next. It's like, because you're so far behind, I'm just going to try and get one jungle camp in my jungle, clear this little area.
Getting carried is sometimes your role.
Yeah.
Not dying and going down 20 CS can sometimes be your role.
Because people might hear that and they think that there must be some crazy magical play, going back to the magical play that I made there in my clip.
I did an Akali review this morning that covered that with a master tier Akali player. And an unfortunate thing happened in the early game, which he actually contributed to, which he didn't even realize. And he has this mental block because he's like, well, if I'm not the one carrying, then I don't really deserve to win.
I don't know what's next.
I don't know what's next. And I said, dude, your role in this game, because you had 2 winning sides, was to get carried. You're not the win condition in this game. You're not playing Akali as a carry here. You're here to not die, spot the enemy Diana mid roams, ping him out. If you can do that and that alone and not die and get to your rocket belt, you win.
You're playing. That's a really good player.
It's a good player.
His scoreline's not going to look fancy.
Yes.
He's going to look, people in the matches will be like, he's just getting carried. But you actually are carrying by not dying, not ruining the game for your team.
Identifying your role in that is what makes a really good player. It's funny you say that, because I had another review this week where it was a Zoe player, and we got to about the 12-minute mark, and I paused the VOD. Right. And I said to the Zoe player, I said, this doesn't feel good, does it? Like, he's facing a Rise. And like, this doesn't feel... You're 0-0-0. He's 0-0-0. If you look on paper, he had winning bot. I think he's top with doing okay as well, whatever it was. I said, this doesn't feel good, does it? He said, no. I said, this is why just because you're 0-0-0 doesn't mean you've done a good job. When you're approaching even past Platinum 4, and we're starting to get into the matchup details, you cannot only rely on deaths as an indicator of success or failure. Sure, like if you're dying in the first 12 minutes, that is an obvious indicator that something's wrong. Yeah. That's a good starting point for a lot of beginners. But as you develop champion mastery, you need to start to understand what boxes, like what am I trying to achieve with my champion? And in this instance, I'm like, dude, you're even with a Rise by 12 minutes and you've got no lead. You win this game because you've got 2 winning sides. In an alternate reality where you're 0-0-0, even CS with a Rise by 12 minutes, and your sides are losing, you insta-lose. This is not a good situation to be in. So think about that. Scoreline alone does not paint the whole picture. It gives you a rough guideline, but it does not paint the whole picture. So that's something you need to think about with your champion. If you're a Xin Zhao and you're 0-0-0 by 15 minutes, that's a red flag. Something's off there. You've probably messed up somewhere pretty hardcore.
It could be the case where you have no options.
But I would say that's rare.
Very rare.
That's right. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting concept. Score isn't everything.
Right, so I think this is a good way to wrap up, Curtis. I think I've got teaching mid-game.
Yeah, one little...
any other tidbits?
Well, this is not about this, but it's a flow-on topic from this, which I think is really important. Do you want to stop the recording on that, by the way?
Yeah, I can.
It's okay.
It's all good.
Okay, so, we're a big fan of Ray Dalio, the hedge fund manager. We've mentioned him a few times on the podcast. He has an excellent book called Principles by Ray Dalio. And he has a philosophy when it comes to his trades, and he's like, he does stocks and trades and stuff like that, right? And he says he views his job as kind of like a mini game, right? He says it's like a game. He views it like a game where he does a trade or whatever it might be, or makes a decision. And let's say it doesn't work out. And what happens is that it doesn't work out, and then he has a painful experience. And upon this painful experience, within that, if you reflect on it and you get the learning there, and you can sometimes develop a principle, something that you can apply to future situations, you get a gem, right? So imagine this in reference to League. You review a mid-game scenario, like you did that Jarvan scenario. You review it, you make sense of it, and then you get a gem. There's a beautiful little bit of learning there, right? In my mind, I visualize that piece of learning, that bit of knowledge is a gem, literally like the shiny little green thing, right? Now, he says when you collect enough gems, enough learnings, you proceed to the next level. And then you do some more learning, have some more principles. You go through more painful experience. You collect a bunch of gems. The more gems you collect, you're progressing. You're going up levels. You're getting to the next level now. and they get a bit harder, get more complicated, right? You've done the basics now. You're getting into more complicated things, more complicated puzzles and problems that you're facing, more gems. And so our goal through League, tying this back to the League analogy, is that we need to imagine this. Imagine across a season, you review 1,000 mid-game scenarios.
It's a lot of gems.
That's a lot of gems. You're gonna get to you're gonna progress in that miniature game.
That's exactly what I did. That's what you and I have done.
That's what we've done. We've just collected 1,000 gems, and that's allowed us to now progress to the next level. And there's an infinite amount of levels because the game is infinitely complicated. But you get to a point where you have a very good understanding. You've completed all these levels, so you can look back and be like, yeah, that makes sense. I've got all these principles, all these rules that I like to follow now. And that's but you only get the gem when you've properly reviewed and really distilled the learning from that situation. If you don't review it properly and you're like, oh yeah, that's like kind of happen. You don't really try to make sense of it. Why did that work well? Why did that not work well? You won't get the gem. And so that's the way the analogy that I'm thinking right now in terms of improvement in League. It's a long-term mini game.
It is.
Of learning, of the gems that you collect.
That's just breaking down the whole as well. People think it's like, you're the talent of your games or not. Like, you can genuinely learn this stuff. That's sometimes people just don't think that as well. People think it's like, they look at, the first clip, like me able to do that. Guys, I was not able to do that even like a year ago.
I think, I'm going to say straight up, I don't think you're a talented gamer.
No, I'm not.
You're not.
No.
Straight up.
Absolutely not.
I think like you're not. Like, I'm going to say that straight up.
I appreciate the optimism in my
Well, what I'm saying
level.
is that in a positive way, right? Because I think what you've been able to achieve with your climb, as a non-talented gamer, is really impressive. And I think there are people that are a hell of a lot more talented than you that, you've surpassed just through doing that journey. So I think that if you can achieve the level of play you've done, like literally, I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of people can achieve that level just with time and effort.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of time and effort.
A lot of time and effort.
But I've spent years, collecting my gems.
That's right. That's why I would say you're not an overly talented gamer because it's taken you years and years and years to get there.
Like coming back I can't remember coming back from my 4-year break, I was struggling in high platinum. Getting to Diamond 4 was like a huge achievement for me back in season 9, season 10.
And this segues beautifully, Nathan, into my next topic. Now, this one is a bit of a long story. I think that there are many people out there that this story will help. He's an ex-Soul 2 member. He's now in the MLA. He was a jungler. And he's now
converted to the dark side.
So I'm going to really break down from start to finish this guy's story. This one is a pretty crazy one, all right? His name's Matt, Moon Cultist.
I do remember Matt. He was
basically
avid member of the Soul 2
community.
And
he must have been a Diana jungle player when he was in the Soul 2.
Yeah.
And so to give a bit of context, Matt had a very miraculous climb recently this season. He went from low plat to master.
Wow.
So I said, okay, Matt, I want you to share your findings with me.
So this is in about a span of 2 months or something?
Very quickly. And I'm like, what the hell happened here?
So from my understanding, just for gaming background,
we'll get into this. We'll get into his gaming background. My point here, though, is that it left me feeling very curious. I was like, what's going on here? I want to know what's up. So I sent him a message. I said, can you articulate give me the breakdown here. What happened? Because I like to inquire within my successful clients, like what worked and what didn't. So then I can like kind of use that for other clients. And he said, okay. So you asked if I could articulate what led to my rapid progress. And I feel like I might have found a way to. It isn't short because it isn't something that clicked in the last 2 to 3 weeks. More so something that I've probably been working on for a year or more. I'm not sure if you remember the first review I had with you. I don't blame you if you don't, as you do so many of them. It was almost a year ago at this point. But we had to ignore me spam pinging my team and constantly calling to FF the entire game. We ended that review with you requesting that I create some level of theory about the game, as I clearly wasn't capable of thinking about it at a high level at this point in time. So essentially he was just a lost cause. Like his foundation of the understanding of the game was like really flawed. Like there was no point even getting into the details because his fundamental relationship with the game was so bad that there was no point of even like really getting into the review, right? He said, I think since then I had spent a lot of time wearing down these bad habits, narratives, and most importantly, ego. Only once I had worn them down enough could I actually start to improve both in-game and out-of-game. I believe I generated a bit of an ego as I was the kind of player that could hit Diamond almost strictly off champion mastery and skirmish potential alone. I can go into more detail about that process if you'd like to hear about that, and we'll get into that later. In the last 2 to 4 weeks, I feel like I had finally worn down the bad habits, the narrative, the ego, to the point where I could finally get over myself a little bit and fully embrace the mantra of the BBC. High intensity 3 blocks, VOD reviewing, and generating a curious view on the game are the primary out of game things that I was able to apply to help my climb outside of the game.
My favorite word, curious. I
Love
need to
that
get
word.
that printed on a t-shirt.
Curiosity.
Man. We need a water bottle that says curiosity.
I set myself up with a system that is pretty great for me, that I think might be great for others, that might be also organizational types. I'll attach some pictures for reference. I upload every single VOD I play directly onto YouTube after finishing the 3rd game of my block, which stops me from playing more than 3 as my ping would be too high to play. During that time, I make a separate Google Doc every day where I review my games. I have a Google Sheets document where I can archive them more easily. And I sort all of my VODs, my matchup, on my playlist on my YouTube account, which allows me to look through the matchups I succeed and struggle against. Only with my mental issues set aside and a structure set up could I finally start working on my gameplay. If I focused on my gameplay before that, I would not have had the success I have now. I figured I would take my gameplay and reviews in a simple direction, play to my strengths until those don't work anymore. I haven't hit the point yet. I haven't hit the point where they don't work, as we can tell by my climb hardly slowing down at all. But those strengths I focused on were my champion mastery, skirmishing potential, and mid-game macro. And it's funny because that's kind of where I started from, which allowed me to start reviewing from a perspective that I understood. Even then, I was able to recognize that I was being lazy. Things like not trading around Electrocute or my passive and Diana in lane are 2 examples of things that I have fixed for the most part. Only once I feel like I've plateaued due to playing strictly around my strengths, will I start to add learning objectives based around weaknesses in my gameplay. So essentially, like, he hasn't really plateaued. He's just doing the basics, what he perceives to be the basics of champ mastery, playing in accordance to the champ's strengths and weaknesses, and just doing the basics. And that's like, he's got to master tier. Like, he hasn't actually done anything overly sophisticated yet. And so he's kind of, sent some documents. Then I said to him, can you please expand a little bit on, you said you had an ego or a bad mental. Can you expand on that? And I said, how did you exactly wear down your ego and your bad habits and your narratives?
Great question.
Because I want to get very specific here. Because there's a lot of people that have ego problems and bad narratives. I said, okay, this is where it gets interesting. As to why I had an ego and bad mental was because I started playing League with some relative success due to having a long history of playing other games like Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, Minecraft, etc. I knew my way around a keyboard, but I just had never experienced a MOBA. I started playing in Season 7 preseason, hit level 30 quickly, enough to land in Bronze 5 a few months after. The friends I started playing the game with were around Silver after the first 3 to 4 months of ranked, but I was hard stuck Bronze 4 to 5. By the end of the season, I managed to play Dr. Mundo Jungle exclusively to around Gold 4. Think about that, one season, instantly Gold 4, which outranked my friends at the time and gave me a huge boost of confidence. To explain how much I thought at that point, I literally wrote a guide from Dr. Mundo after playing the game for less than a year and hitting the gold for the first time.
Right. So he probably thought, like, there might be, like, so he's probably in the frame of mind, like, there might be higher ELO Mundo players, but he thinks that he's just nailed it.
He's got it. Yeah, he understands it.
Yeah, and he might be gold for other reasons.
Who knows? The ego expedited as I was freely able to swap roles and champions as much as I wanted and still managed to climb over the next year. Within the next year, I played a lot of Singed top to hit Platinum for the first time, swapped back to Jungle and played Old Nunu to peak around P2, P1 in my second season in Season 8. Couple that with having some toxic habits from some old friends that I picked up playing competitive Minecraft servers, and I watched a lot of Tarzan to learn the game. And it's safe to say that I felt unstoppable and didn't treat my teammates with the most respect. In Season 9, I would start college, make a ton of new friends that also played League through my university esports program. And I remember when the tryouts came around for that year, I couldn't even try out on my main with my main champions because it was under a 2-week suspension. This somehow didn't dissuade me from being toxic. You can imagine what an already toxic player that has gotten mass amounts of climbing done, who enjoys Tarzan and plays his fair share of Old Nunu would look like at this point. Regardless of that, I was able to once again this year hit Diamond 4 after switching champions for another time now playing Kindred. This would be my peak rank even until I joined the MLA and stopped playing jungle altogether. This explains the ego, and I feel like this backstory is important because at no point in time did I ever try to truly put in the work and learn the game. I essentially spammed games, mechanics maxed to Diamond over the course of 2.5 years without any previous MOBA experience. Regardless of this, I may be toxic and somewhat mechanically talented at this point. My mental wasn't necessarily bad. My mental got bad when the climbing stopped. I never climbed out of Diamond 4 in the jungle. I had never put too much effort in at things in real life, such as school. I was the kind of student that would get A's while doing the absolute bare minimum, bullshitted all of my assignments, projects, papers, never studied. This is important because I never learned that when the going gets tough, that you have the option to put your head down and make a solid attempt and learn. I didn't have that work ethic or much of that at any point. And because of this, I figured maybe the champion I was playing wasn't good enough. So I did the climb again, did it on Mundo, Kindred, Graves, Olaf, Nunu, swapped roles, did it playing Aatrox top, did it again playing Engage supports. I did these over the same season, but also over the next few years. Clearly, I figured it was my team that was the issue because I had never had to work for things before. No way it was me. You take a toxic player that believes they are way better than everyone else, give them what they believe is a valid reason to be stuck where they were at, and get someone who spams games, tilts, and loses 15 games in a row, and someone who has no respect for the game. I wasn't able to wear down my bad habits until I came across your podcast and was floored by these ideas that I'd never heard in a League of Legends context before. I'd learned a little bit about these things from Jordan Peterson and his ideas for personal responsibility and taking accountability over the later parts of COVID. So these ideas that you and Nathan discussed weren't completely foreign to me, but I'd never seen it actually work for people. I have two friends that introduced me to you, Bread Butter over in Soul2, who writes into the BBC frequently, and Drake over in the MLA. I joined Soul2 shortly after finding you guys in December of 2021. My first review, Nathan said he thought I should narrow down my champ pool as that is what other people found success with, and I told him that I would be the first to find success in the program with a large pool of 7 champions. This didn't stick, and I started one-tricking Diana as I was a bit desperate. 2021 was the first year in a few that I wasn't able to maintain Diamond in multiple years, so I was willing to open up a bit and try anything that was told to me. I wouldn't start a process at this point, or most of what you guys preach, but I would stick to one champion as I had done before, and I hit Diamond for the first time in a long time. I was learning from Nathan, but I was learning slow. I wasn't VOD reviewing my games yet, but I was going. Hearing people take the game so seriously was foreign to me. I had taken it much more seriously than my friends, but I had taken it seriously as a grinder and not as a learner. I had never left Diamond 4 in the Soul 2, but I saw other people put in the effort and get serious results. I knew something was there, but I wasn't strong enough at that point to dive into it myself. Through learning Diana, I started getting quite bored of League, and I knew my time playing jungle had just run out. I enjoyed the champions so much that I was willing to sacrifice everything I had learned and play a new role just to play this champion alone. This is when I would send you my first message that you can go back and read, and if you would like. He said, I'd play mid, climb to D3, and then so he goes on to join the MLA, climbs to D3, and then my mental, ego, and everything was shattered. My first couple of reviews with you made me realize that I literally wasn't capable of thinking about the game, let alone climbing in it. I started rapidly declining in rank until I took that peak I was at and landed right down back in P4.
Love it.
I then realized at this point something was clearly not working. Little did I know it was everything. I started to incorporate reading into my daily schedule and read the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I had received a wrongful 2-week ban on my league account at this point, and I was trying to argue my case against right support. I was made aware that even if it was questionable, that they would stick with my precedent that I'd set as being an issue for them because he had previous, warnings in the past.
Here's a bad rep sheet. And
that if I had any other issues arise, they would be permanently suspending my account. Between this and my new ideas about why I did things, because he didn't actually know why he played League at all. He actually had no idea.
Yep.
So I took a break from League and the MLA. I went to World Finals in San Francisco with some friends during my hiatus on the road trip back. One of them actually wanted to listen to the BBC instead of listening to music for a change. I hadn't listened to you guys for a while, but I had them automatically downloaded, so I said, sure. The first episode we listened to, I remember almost word for word. You had talked about how you felt like you had failed some clients in the past and mentioned about a Diana player leaving as of recently with the idea that improvement was fake. I didn't think it was me, but I had an idea of who it was. But that shook me because I felt like that was literally my exact same situation, even down to the champion the person played. At this moment, I knew I had unfinished business. I had a roadblock in the thing I love to do that I had chosen to ignore. I gave myself 1 month to spam games to get my mechanics together after a long break and implemented some new strategies. I told myself I would never agree to an FF vote ever again and that I would turn chat off in the game. These are two things I had historically struggled with in the past, and I wanted to remove the temptation of them altogether. I then started three blocking around January. I got myself back into the MLA halfway through the month, and I told myself that if I was here, I wasn't going to waste anyone else's time. I started reviewing games every now and then up until February, and then this is where the Google Docs, the Google Sheets, the YouTube playlist systems were set up, and I knew I wasn't only motivated but driven to hit my goal. Even if I would hit D2, I would have been happy. This is more than I would have ever dreamed of. I'd given up on hitting Masters, and I didn't think it was even possible for me to do that. So when I hit it, I teared up and it got emotional. But it was you guys who told me that I can work for something I want, and I will literally never be able to repay both of you. Now that I am where I am, I don't plan on stopping because I haven't fallen in love with the game or my champion. You guys have taught me what it is like to fall in love with a process. I'm sorry this got a bit long, but I feel like I've added all the details that are important. It is more of a story. It is more of a story than anything else because it wasn't just a few things that opened me up. It was like a journey. This message is also a thank you note, knowing that without the help of you guys and Tim, that I may never have been able to push myself and that I don't know if I would ever have found the time or effort to do it in the future. And that's it.
Okay, I have a couple of things to touch on, Curtis. Should I start?
Yep.
Okay, so the first thing is that Matt was in our ecosystem, heard about us, knew about our ideas for about 2 years. He was in the Soul 2 for a pretty good time, but he did bounce up and down a little bit. You know, and it's really interesting, you know, people come across our podcast, you know, they sort of see the ideas, you know, he was sort of on board with it, you know, sort of, you know, as you said, had a really bad foundation. Yeah, half-assed it. And it just goes to show, if you have a really bad relationship with the game, it takes a long time. Even if you listen to us every week, and I actually have had many members come through Soul 2 over time, I have people that, you know, start from, you know, a foundation as bad as Matt's, and it just takes long, and some never get to that point. Matt really wanted to change. He hit rock bottom. Which is so important for change in all aspects of, you know, in our lives, not just League of Legends. He identified that he was a toxic player and his ego was in his way. That's really hard to do and come to grips with. Again, that's where hitting rock bottom really helps. Because I feel that some people are scared of the podcast and, you know, because they see people in our comments or communities, let's say they first joined and be like, wait, like, why am I in this? I feel like I'm in a fairyland. Like, how do people get to this stage? You know, like loving the game and not blaming teammates and like, following a process like playing 3 blocks and not spamming games. It's really intimidating to people. But again, you've got to give it time. It takes time, you know, and don't be scared by our ideas, because I think people generally are scared by what we talk about, because they sort of like believe it, but they also are scared. As this is the other thing as well, they're scared of if they do follow we say and they still fail.
That's the number one fear in my opinion.
What then? That's like that, because everyone else is,
because you're exposed. If you give it your all and you fail, that is that's a scary idea. And for him, he said he had never really tried at anything in his entire life. He just kind of just went baseline, low intensity, let my talent.
It's a defense mechanism.
It is a defense mechanism. It's an ego protection mechanism.
Yes.
That's right. And what I love about this as well is that he wasn't ready to genuinely learn the game. Think about that. When he joined the MLA for the first time, when he joined the Soul 2 for the first time, nothing we said about the game would have changed. Nothing. We would never have got him better. Nothing we would have said would have made him better. It was up to him to be honest with himself and realize that he wasn't being genuinely curious. He wasn't ready to improve. He had to step away, deal with his own real life stuff before he comes in.
It's interesting to think that, you know, because he went through the checkout process. He paid knowing that he's going into an improvement listen to our podcast, isn't that interesting as well? Just because you join our program, right? Our programs, you pay the money. That's a commitment. It's a financial commitment. You still might not be ready to really learn as Matt.
I do respect that though, because at the end of the day, there's only it's better that you just make the leap of faith than not at all, in a way. I think there are a lot of people out there that are probably intimidated, that need that push over the edge. And I think that being financially committed to something, spending that, $30 and be like, okay, now, it gives you permission to kind of try in a way. But again, you're not committed forever. You might get in for a month or two and be like, you know what, I'm actually not ready. I need to take some time to get my shit together, leave, come back 2 or 3 months later, and then you're in a better space. But I think for a lot of people, they do need to make that leap of faith just to have a crack, and then it might click together. But it's not like you're stuck there, you can always come back. And I do like that he had that crack and then got exposed and realized, okay, this is not for me yet. I need to take a break from this and then kind of come back. I really respect that. But it just goes to show, by the way, how quickly you can get results as well. When you get your mind sorted and when you let your ego at the door, leave that aside.
Accept your level of skill. Accept
your level of play and realize this and genuinely commit to the process of improvement, how quickly you can actually improve at the game. Think about that. He went from not playing at all, taking a break, coming back, and within 2 months getting master tier. And what I loved, and what really, because we came to a review, the quality of questions he was asking in the review, dude, you can tell a great client straight away by the quality of questions they ask. He was asking about the details, and we got into the details and actually used an example of one of his mistakes in one of my recent clips, but I love it because he's just open-minded. He's ready to hear it. He's wanting to ask. He's probing, and you can tell straight away he's open-minded. He's not trying to defend his gameplay. He's not trying to protect his ego. It's just I'm just here to learn. Help me learn and see this from a different perspective. That's a very powerful client. You can make a lot of progress when you adopt that mentality.
Curiosity was what he was. What you mentioned it in his message.
And for me, these stories make me really emotional because the impacts that this is going to have on his life holistically, outside of league and whatever endeavor that he chooses to do, that is some powerful shit.
He knows effort and get into the details, given time.
The confidence you get from that, dude.
Yeah, you just have to do it once with one skill.
Once with one thing. It doesn't even have to be league, but we're just doing it through here and maybe the podcast. We're doing it through league, but it's powerful, that growth mindset. Now, whatever he goes to do in the future, he knows that there is levels to this.
He's gone through the process.
He knows what it's like to genuinely try.
And to figure out a process.
And figure it out and go out of your way to really make yourself vulnerable and have a crack. Yeah, so I thought that was an amazing story to share. And I think that, I love these stories of failure and redemption and going through hell and back and then
hitting rock bottom. I love those stories.
And I think it's such an important story to share for people out there in the BBC universe, that anything is possible. This guy is that's just basically as bad as you could get. I don't think you can really get that worse. Basically on the edge of permaban, swapping roles, swapping champions.
The key thing is that he gets 2 week banned and he thinks it's not a problem.
I know.
That's as bad. And that's what a lot of the toxic players are like. Yeah. They're like, oh, I'm not that toxic. That was an unjustified ban. That's as bad as it gets.
Yeah. So shout out, Matt. Thank you so much for writing that, Matt. And really appreciate your transparency and your honesty.
All right, I'm ready to move into our Reddit section, Curtis.
Yep, let's do it.
All right, so here's a post from SummonerSchool. So this is what I always scour every week, and this was one about CSing, Curtis. You do a bit of lane CSing.
Yep, I actually got a great lesson in my mid-lane school about CSing.
The importance of it. I don't do it
and how to do it.
As a jungler, I don't really do that much. This is going to be maybe for you, Curtis. The title of this Reddit thread is How to Not Have a Massive CS Difference When Playing into a Counter. I find that I can usually not die to a counter lane by playing super safe, but this tends to lead to them having a massive CS lead on me 60 plus or so. Since I lose so much as lots of minions die inside their trade range, and if I ever step in trading range, I get obliterated and have to recall or face being killed. My strategy is to stay as far as possible from them, but still in XP range, and to take any CS whenever they leave trade range. Currently, that leaves me with a huge CS deficiency as they zone off any CS. Any tips to not die and get decent CS? Oh, I should mention that this is an issue. This is an issue in top lane, as I can just roam if I'm in mid, and while I tend to play tanks, any general tips will do.
Okay, there's a few concepts that I'm going to introduce here and talk about, but I want to start by using a real life analogy here. Let's talk about UFC, mixed martial arts, for a second. Okay. In UFC, there's a rule, or you can actually score points in the octagon by getting octagon control. Okay. So if you like push someone back and like
into a corner.
Yeah. If you're the one that's kind of trying to push into them and like you're forcing them back and they're on the back foot, you actually kind of get points for that, right? Because you're the one that's trying to instigate the fight.
Even though you're not necessarily hitting them.
Yeah, you're not even hitting them, right? Now, think about that. So if we compare mixed martial arts, imagine if, you're thinking to yourself, look, this guy's longer range than me. I can't do anything. If I just keep running back, you're just going to lose the fight eventually. You got to do something. It's the same thing in League. If you're getting outranged and the guy's like just poking you and then you're in lane and you like just sit back under your tower, you're going to lose the game, right? You're going to lose the lane. You're going to lose the game. You can't play it out like that. So there's that. So what do you do? So if you're a shorter ranged fighter in mixed martial arts, you got to duck and weave. You got to feint. You got to fake. You got to create a pattern, break a pattern. There are things you could do mechanically in League along the same lines of pretending to go up, baiting out an ability. So let's say, for example, you're playing Talon, and let's say you are versing a Syndra. You might pretend that you're going to go up and go for this last hit and bait it, and then bait out the Syndra QE. And then you've just created a window of cooldowns where now Syndra doesn't have cooldowns and you can punish. That's just a very stock standard concept of kind of baiting, faking, using mechanics as a way to outplay and create windows to trade, right? And more importantly, create windows to CS. So that's one concept that you can do. The second concept is that of trading HP for CS. So I actually had a very, very, very similar question this morning from the MLS from Nerthy. He said, Curtis, I'm playing Talon and I'm playing into a Victor and I'm just getting poked down. I can't do anything. What do I do? If I sit back and relax, I get no farm and I can't roam because I lose all this farm. What do I do? So I said, okay, one of your biggest strengths as Talon is your wave clear. But you can do this even if you don't have a lot of wave clear. Let's say you're playing Talon, you get shoved in, you catch some CS under tower, and then, the wave's kind of bouncing out. What you can do is just trade all of your HP for the wave. So let's say you're sitting on 80% HP, you then W the wave, take a bunch of a Q auto and an E to a face from that Victor, you shove the wave out, you trade your HP for it, maybe you drop down to 20%, you just reset. Just reset. Come back, replenish resources, get your pots back up with your refill, come back. You might only get a longsword or a tier 1 boots, okay? Do it again.
You've got all the minions at that point.
You've got all the minions, so it doesn't matter. You've traded your HP for the wave. So this is what we call a kind of tempo resetting, right? You can actually trade HP for the wave. And the idea of a resetting on a small amount of gold is very foreign to especially a lot of low elo players. They don't understand that you can simply go back to base to replenish your resources or buy a dagger. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's what you actually have to do when you're in a counter matchup. You actually have to trade HP for the wave.
I can tell what he's probably getting into situations is that, as well, what I notice with my laners sometimes when I'm reviewing lower elo is that they can't accept losing like a wave and then they lose 3 waves because
that as well. Sacrificing CS for the greater good is another one as well.
Because you might sacrifice initially 7 farm to gain 21 farm.
That's right.
Versus you might be losing 7 and you can't accept replenishing resources and you just get stuck in that lane.
Another common mistake you see is that let's say you're playing Talon into Victor, and you ultimately what you really want is you want the wave to be coming into you because it makes it easier for you to farm, right? Because you're a melee, you can't farm if the wave's sitting outside Victor's tower, right? So what you can do is you can stand inside the wave and get Victor to hit you and the wave, and then the wave will come out to you. So then the wave's in a favorable position for you to farm. What you can also do is you can sometimes, like you can sacrifice a minion to create a window to trade onto them, and then you trade onto them. That will relieve pressure. There's things you can do of that nature. Or another one, what you see is that, say you're playing Talon, and that they get, okay, there's a few minions that are about to die. They AoE that minion wave with that W, they rake on the W, but then that shoves the wave into the Victor. So they get those 3 creeps, but then they lose 12 on the back end. So it's the opposite of what you said there. You can actually get those 3, but you actually ruin the wave state. And for a lot of champions, when you're in a counter matchup, the wave state is more important than trades. That's actually what I say. The wave state is more important than trades because the wave state will lead to good quality trades. Good quality trades won't lead into a good wave state sometimes. So that's a kind of a concept as well. So there's many, many concepts here, but they typically revolve around resetting and wave management and trading resources. Again, if you're back to the MMA, right? You know, if you get outrange, you gotta trade damage. You're gonna take damage, but if you don't take damage, you're not gonna be able to do damage,
and you're not pressuring the opponent at all.
That's right. And pressure, like we talk about. I love these concepts, right? We talk about feinting and faking, right? There's kind of like a concept of like perceived pressure, right? You can walk up and like kind of get into range, but not necessarily cast your ability. And you're putting pressure on the enemy. The enemy's now panicking like, oh my God, like this guy's is he going to engage on me? Like, is he trying to get on me? What is he doing? And you're occupying the mental stack of that guy. So again, I'll give you a great example of say, an assassin into a mage. Let's say you're playing Yone into Victor. And let's say then the wave is on your side. There are 2 ways of keeping the wave in that location. You can just trade wave for wave and say, okay, I'm going to hit the wave, you can hit the wave, and then we kind of just push back and forth like that. Or you can actually exert pressure on the victor, like posturing aggressively with your Q3 available, and that makes them scared. And then the victor's like will stop autoing the wave, might hesitate, and then he's not hitting the wave anymore. So you're actually thinning the wave or preventing the wave from getting big by just instigating, creating pressure on the enemy.
And making overwhelming Victor's mental stack.
Which is and the best was what I love to do is that the more you overwhelm the mental stack of the enemy by putting this perceived pressure on them, they can't think about jungler anymore. And then that is how you lead to ganks. Yeah. Because they can't think of the jungler and then that's why heavy trading matchups are by concept very difficult for a lot of people because they're so jacked up mentally. They can't think. That's why if you don't play mid and you as a jungler comes to mid and you're in a heavy trading matchup, you will not think about the jungler, I guarantee you, at all, because your mental stack is so overwhelmed. You wouldn't even be able to manage the wave. Yeah. Like let alone thinking about trades and then the waves and when you're going to reset. There's just a lot of information there that you need to build muscle memory for.
All it takes is one really, from a win condition jungle perspective, I'm aware that if I have a counter, you know, one of my laners is getting hard countered, I see an opportunity, a window. All it takes is that one window. If I get a gank off or something, help them with the wave, the game's so good for me,
right.
You know? But the worst thing to do is when a laner is so passive, just letting them in the octagon, push them into the corner the whole time. And they can freely track me. They can war. They're putting out so much pressure. There's no overwhelm that person's mental stack. And the game's so easy for your opponent. Easy. You're making the game too easy for your opponent.
And the worst thing you can do for your jungler is stay on lane on low resources. They can't even help you shove out the wave. Yeah. Like if you're sitting in lane with no mana and no HP as a Talon, and you're playing say Jarvan jungle, you're going to look at that lane and be like, "What the hell am I going to do?"
And the enemy jungler that's a pressure point. They can hard pressure you at that.
That's
point.
right. And staying in lane on low resources is one of the worst things you can do. So that's why you got to get comfortable trading HP for CS and
losing some minions.
That's why resets is what I call a fundamental. It's a fundamental of the game.
That's right.
Right. Wave management and resets alone with Champ Mastery, those 3 concepts that I'm teaching inside my mid lane school right now with my below gold clients, that I have a theory right now that I'm currently testing. I believe 4 concepts will get you to gold. Wave management, champion mastery, resets, and basic threat assessment.
Love it.
If you can understand those 4 concepts and then start to improve those 4 concepts over time, my current theory, and something that I'm currently testing right now in the MLS, is if you can understand those 4 things with curiosity, you will get to gold pretty quickly. That's my current theory that I'm trying to test.
Fantastic.
Resets. I love resets. It's such an important concept.
It's fair for jungle, for every role. One good reset can give you a massive advantage in a game.
Yep. And I'm actually starting to see results right now in the MLS. People message me, say, Curtis, I feel actually in control of my lanes now. Now that I know how to manage a wave and reset, like it feels like a different game.
It would.
It would feel like it does feel instantaneously like a different game because now you're the one that's higher resources. And because in below gold and even in gold, people's resets are terrible. If you know how to reset, even if your trading is not good, you're going to put yourself in a lot of good positions. It'll just be so easy because overstaying in lane is the most common mistake in mid lane in my reviews. Like literally every review, like without a doubt, there is an overstay. And as we know, overstaying is one of the worst things you could possibly do. That alone. But again, it's hard to learn that. It takes time, it takes practice, but you've got to have a crack, right? It takes time.
That's our mantra for the BBC. Mailbag?
Yep.
Away we go. Welcome back for Nathan's Mailbag. Jingle, jingle, jingle song. All right, our first question here comes from a summoner called InfinitySoul. The title of this email is, why are off-meta capped? I want to react to your talk about the off-meta champs getting capped in higher elo in last episode number 138, which it was. Curtis's reasoning, if I understood this correctly, is higher elo players will know how to play against it. He says, but how? And when does an off-meta pick stop being a boost and starts holding you down? Playing an off-meta pick, say Jhin mid, which was the example, you are the only player playing it. Under Master, the pool of players is big enough that players will rarely run into each other's multiple times. So a Diamond player will not have the opportunity to learn how to play against a Jhin mid. So either the cap of a off-meta pick is Master. Off-meta picks fall off the higher elo you go because they have fundamental flaws. By fundamental, I mean not specific to the character. That let the best players beat the off-meta pick with a game fundamental and without the need to know how the pick exactly works. I'll be curious to see what you think about this.
Pretty simple. 2 reasons. Meta. Most effective tactics available. The meta, right? Think about what that the statement just means. The meta are the most effective tactics available on the current patch. Okay? So when we're playing Master Plus, we're talking about meta. These are the champions that just they're played in the right positions. They do the most damage. They have the most utility. That your meta is essentially like, people have played the game for a while now. We know what works and what doesn't work, and also certain champions seem to do well in certain roles, and this has been kind of figured out over the years, right? Like, it helps to have terrain scaling as a jungler. Right, people have realized that.
It's great to jump over walls.
It's very important to jump over walls. Like, there's reason, and then so you can kind of go through these things for each and every role, and that is why they are meta.
So when you look at the Jhin mid, it's like, this AD carries are designed to have supports that help and buff.
There are a reason why they are an AD carry.
Yeah.
Okay,
so they have the support.
Yes, and they have a support that enables them, and the underlying. And yes, there are some champions that can kind of, like Tristana has an escape, right, which kind of doesn't really need the support.
You're talking about the Tristana mid.
We're talking Tristana white comparatively to Jhin, right? Tristana has this stealth steroid, so it has tower killing potential and wave clear, which a lot of AD carries don't have, and the self peel potential with the W. So Tristana actually does make sense as a mid laner, but it's not really off meta. Like, Trist mid has been a pick for years.
Hard counter pick to certain matchups.
Yeah, and so my point being is that you compare Jhin mid to something like a Tristana. There, you can distill that into key traits of the champion that make it good or bad, right? And so when it is roughly around master tier where meta becomes more important, because and so that ties into the second point, which is players understand the game at a much better level in master tier. Like, people know, like, they start to think about the game a lot more holistically. They understand what their role's about, what all the champions do. And even if you play an off-meta pick, they're going to have a pretty clear idea of what you're going to do. Like, okay, think about it. The average Master Tier player, they might not verse a Tristana all year. They're going to know if they see a Tristana mid with Halo Blaze and Ignite that they're going to try and jump on their face at level 2. That you don't need to be, if you're a Master player, you already have that knowledge embedded in your brain. You're not really going to get caught off guard like that average D4 mid laner would get caught off guard, right? So, they're the 2 main reasons. The champion is off meta. It's not the most effective tactics available. Because, again, tying into the underlying traits of that champion in that role, and also that of, like, players just being better and understanding the game to a more in-depth level and not getting caught off guard by stuff. Now, that's not to say that these picks don't work situational. Like the Jamaican banana guy, right? In NA, that plays Ivan, and he plays
AP Ivan jungle.
Plays at AP Ivan jungle, which, he makes it work. He's so good at that champion. But that, so that's why, again, it's a case by case. There's a big difference between... Ivan really is a jungler.
Yeah, he is.
Right? So it's not really... It is off meta, technically, because it's not really the meta, but it's still designed for that role,
yes.
Right? It's not like he's playing AP Ivan top. right? Or something like that. So yes, off meta can work to a degree, but like there's a point where it gets past the point of no return in terms of like getting too crazy. So yeah, does that kind of answer the question?
I think you're spot on. I was just going to emphasize that. Yeah, the roles have over time we've figured out what's a good mid laner in general, what's a good top laner, what's a good ADK, what's a good support, what's a good jungler.
That's right. That's why you don't really see crazy stuff. You're not really going to see every now and then in a particular meta you might see some odd stuff.
Well, the jungle meta changes the most. That's always changed the most because
really, even more than support, you see a lot of crazy supports. Think about it. You go through
probably jungle support.
I think jungle support.
I'm just thinking about the Rumble jungle meta, the Morgana meta,
just especially nowadays because of the way they changed the jungle camps, right? Because they changed how like a lot of other junglers can play. Champs can jungle now.
Yeah. But again, those weren't off meta. They became the meta.
They became the meta, right? Yeah, that's different. Yeah. Yep, and even those off meta champs, they're not off meta, right? If they were the most effective tactics available, they're still meta. Yeah, right.
All right. Next question here comes from Benasty. Title of this email is Identity Crisis! Hello, Nathan and Curtis. I'm a huge fan of the podcast and religiously listen to you guys at work. You help keep League on my mind whilst I'm not able to play and have provided many helpful tools to get me on track with Ranked, the solo queue contract, managing tilt, etc. To preface, I've been playing since Season 4, but I'm not a great player. When I started playing, it was with friends, and I just did what they told me to do, which was Z mid. I never bothered with Ranked until around Season 11, where I did my placement matches and then went back to normals. I played a little Ranked in Season 12, but never took it seriously. I got to Gold 3 as a support main, and found a lot of success with champs like Sona, Alistair, and Soraka. But I played almost every champ I could get my hands on. Now in Season 13, I'm looking to get more serious about Ranked. My goal was to get to Plat this season. However, I ran into a lane identity crisis. I'm a good support player. The role feels easy to me, and I find myself making the right plays with relative ease. I've recently started reviewing my games as well to help me improve. But the role feels stale to me. I know the impact I have on games, and I know how well a support can carry a game. But for example, when a huge wave crashes our T3 turrets, and no one on my team seems to be looking at the map or responding to pings, I find myself struggling to clear the wave by myself. So that's like a late game situation where he's like trying to defend the inhibitor or something as a support player.
Right.
Yep. These issues have led me to wanting to take a more hard carry role. I tried doing jungle for my placements and royally fucked up. I placed in Iron 2 and didn't enjoy the experience of jungle. I'm not bothered about my rank. I've already moved to high Iron playing support. I've been thinking about giving top lane a try. Garen has been one of my highest win rates in normals, and I've enjoyed playing Aatrox. My question is, should I push back my goal of reaching platinum and focus on learning top lane, or should I stick with what I'm good at and grind support?
So I'm going to use a real life analogy.
You love analogies here, Curtis.
Yeah, I think it really gets across the point here. Let's say, okay, so let's say like this. Let's say you had a dream of getting this particular job, right? But getting this particular job required you to go to university for 3 years to get a degree, and then in which case you could get that dream job. Or you could say, you know what, I'm actually not going to go to university and I can just work this job now. It's not really my dream job, but it pays the bills.
It's pretty good pay.
Pretty good pay. It just does the job. I can pay my bills. I can, rent, whatever, pay my rent, and I can...
There's an opportunity to promote and get a little bit more.
Well, my point here is more that you're thinking we've got the short-term answer, which is get the job now, or we've got the long-term, which is, okay, put in the 3 years at university and get the dream job, the job that you really want. Now, tying this back to League, seems to me that support is kind of that immediate job. It's like you don't love it, but it gets you, it does enough for you, and you could probably achieve that goal, but it won't be overly satisfying. It seems to me that he's delaying the inevitable. He kind of knows that this role isn't the dream role for him, but if for him to get out of his comfort zone and put in that, year or two of work to play maybe the top lane or whatever that role is, it's kind of, it's daunting. He's going to, he's like, I'm going to have to go back to Iron, and I'm going to have to, I have to give up my initial my goal this year of getting platinum. So you see what I mean? So I think that depending on your situation, do you really want to get platinum 4 this season? How important is that to you? right? Tying back to the real life, is it really important for you to move out of home right now and rent right now rather than living at home with your parents or whatever? Or are you willing to make the sacrifice, forego that goal, put the 3 years in university, get that better job, and then go that direction? So I think if it were me, I would prefer put the support to the side, play the role that you genuinely find the most satisfying. Yes, you're going to be at the bottom of iron. Yes, it's going to suck for the short term, but in the long run, I think you'll be a lot happier because Lee's not going anywhere.
Curtis, I think you're missing the huge part of this in terms of the psychology. What's the reason that he's moving to top lane, Curtis? You know, you mentioned about, you know, the dream job, which you were saying is in top lane. He identified a problem in the game. He felt like the enemy top laner was split pushing pressuring, and he wants to be the top laner to prevent that specific thing happening in the game.
Right.
I think that's a huge
think he's tunnel
red
visioning
flag.
on that?
You know your analogy of the dream job. People have an idea of a dream job. Guess there's things that are going to suck in that dream job that it's a fantasy.
It's like a fairyland. They think that if I do that, everything's going to be perfect.
Yes.
Right.
It might be better. You might enjoy the job.
interesting.
But, you know, the current job right now, maybe there's things you still like about it.
And maybe you can get better at that job and find a way through that.
Yes.
Get promoted in that job, right?
Maybe you walk up late, you have your own business, you have way more opportunity, you can climb up. So
again, what we can see here is that me and Nathan don't have enough information about your situation.
Yeah, the key thing here is
you have to be honest with yourself.
The key thing here is that's a huge that one sentence about that tier 3 situation that goes back to, was it last, I think it was 2 episodes ago, you know how I said that people try and find solutions to everything in League of Legends,
right?
They're not thinking about everything has weaknesses. Guess what you're going to complain about when you come top lane?
I'm stuck on an island.
I don't
have
have
no
map impact and stuff like that. Oh, I just want to dominate bot as a support player and stuff. Like,
I want to roam.
You can hear it with every role.
There's you can always look at the negatives of a role.
That's right. And it's the same with the job, any job as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the way I'm interpreting this is he's only playing support now because it's what giving him results now. That's the way I'm interpreting it. It's like, okay, that's the easiest role for him now. Like, I can just play Sonar and I can, play to a gold level now, rather than getting into the weeds, knowing that he truly loves another role and like failing for a while, So I can see where you're coming from. Yep. So we don't have enough information. No. I think we're aligned though on saying that no role is perfect, and the only role that you should play is the one that you genuinely find the most fun and get the most contentment and satisfaction out of. They're all going to have negatives. You're going to have painful experiences in all of them. They're all going to suck at some point.
They're all going to have their own set of narratives.
But at the end of the day, League's not going anywhere. Do what's going to benefit you the most. What's going to give you the most fun in the long run. Yeah.
So my answer to that question is stick to support.
So Nathan's hunch is that it's like copium here.
Yeah.
It's like you think you're overcomplicated. You actually do like support. You're just looking at the negatives. The way I interpreted the message was you don't like support. You're only playing it right now because it's the convenient option. And that seems to be what's getting you results now rather than playing what you really enjoy. So again, I don't think we have enough information to really give you the answer here.
So as always, whenever, Curtis, we're on the complete opposite ends of an disagreement, in the comments, are you team Nathan or your team Curtis?
Yeah. How did you guys in the comments interpret that question? It's a bit of a mixed bag, that one.
All right, next question here comes from Aron. Hi, Curtis and Nathan. My name is Aron, and I'm a member of the Mid Lane Academy. Last week, I asked Curtis a question about secondary roles, specifically what he would suggest that I do to combat the following problem. Lately, I've switched to queuing mid-support, as I really enjoy support, way more than top, which was my previous secondary. The only problem is that I don't get my primary role nearly as often anymore. As a matter of fact, since I swapped to mid-support, I've played 23 games, of which 14 were support. That is 61% of those games. If I keep queuing mid-support, I will clearly not go anywhere as a mid laner, since I can't get enough games in. Curtis recommended me to stay away from playing my one trick, Akali, in the top lane, as it is a very different game from playing Akali mid, which I agree with and is the reason why I swapped in the first place. He said that I should consider dabbling in either AD carry or jungle, or if you do want to play top for whatever reason, play in a much simpler, different champion top like that of an Ornn. I know that I'm not in a million years wanting to play AD carry as a secondary, so that leaves me with jungle or top. My question is now, what chance would you recommend that I try in these roles, and which should I stay away from? For context, as support, I almost exclusively play Leona, which I really enjoy, and of course Akali when I'm mid. I'm currently in gold 1. I guess that the champ I choose should be somewhat similar to one of these, and be overall very simple for me to able to pick them up in not too long time ago. Thankful for any advice you give. Curtis, I'm going to call this out, dude. That can't be right. 23 games, he's playing 61% of games for support.
It depends on the server and the rank. It can be really bad. No one plays support in low elo, dude. In gold, especially, what I've noticed is that it's a very unpopular role. So you get it a lot if you put it as your secondary.
Interesting.
So this is what I say. I've wrote an article about it. You know, I say usually if you can, if you can pick 80 carry and support and not get it too much, that is the best role to do. They're the best roles to do as a mid laner because they're easiest. But then if you're getting a lot, you actually have to pivot. And I actually think jungle is doable for people if they take it seriously, and because like if you understand lanes,
you know what's good gank, bad gank.
And now that they simplified the paths, it's not as complicated anymore. Like you're not going to be a sophisticated jungler. I understand that, but I do believe that if you can play a champ that again has a clear identity and you understand waves and you as a laner, you kind of know what a good gank and a bad gank is easier than a jungler. It's in the realm of possibility because there are a lot of people who play jungle secondary in my mid lane academy with success, which caught me off guard and actually changed my opinion.
Oh, really?
I was initially don't play jungle secondary, but I've actually kind of retracted my statement and said you can do it. But yeah, well, so from your perspective? You know, if they were to play top or jungle, what would you say? What type of champs?
Well, just again, so this is a common problem.
Yes, very common because mid's so popular. I actually haven't looked at the stats. I think mid, and it's gotten more popular over the seasons. Mid is so popular. Yeah. Secondary role is a question I get nearly every day. It's such a common problem because you don't. I had a block
60%. I was expecting like maybe
no 60. more than mid because if you mid's so popular, and if you put secondary role that is an unpopular role, you'll get it a lot. I had a block yesterday. I played two support games.
Yeah, I mean, I have that as well because we're in heights, we're in challenges.
No, but think about that's when support is popular as well.
Yeah, support's more popular in our
Support's way more popular in our elo bracket. If you're playing that in gold, dude, everyone thinks support's the shittest role.
That's the narrative. Support's such a good role.
I know, but it's such a good role. We know that. But again, lower elo players, you're in gold and stuff, they hate support. They think it's useless.
Okay, all right.
Everyone wants to be the carry, remember, Nathan?
Yeah, you got a 1v9.
You got a 1v9. That's the narrative.
Dude, you can 1v9 support, dude.
That's right, but I don't get that.
Okay.
So what I said was like in top, I didn't really comment for jungle. I said like for top, like champs like Aron.
Yeah.
Just like keeping it really simple.
Minimize.
Like Cassandra. Just like champs that provide utility and can minimize and play weak side. Just baseline, do your job and like create a bit of chaos in a team fight.
Because the way you'd think about it is that, okay, let's just do some, I mean, obviously, we want to get improved. We still want to get, not lose the game for our team, but
that's right. You want to be able to baseline do your job.
If you get 10% of your games as top, and even if you only win 4, you have a negative around 40%. You're still gonna if you're getting really good at mid, you're still you can have a negative rank, you'll still be fine. Yep. So I think if you figure out how to do your job with Aron, I think you should
play Aron every game.
I think 40% win rate would be
group on major team fights. Pressure R button. You're probably gonna be okay. Like I think Sion, Aron, and Cassandra, champs like that it can build tank.
Yeah,
you can minimize very easy. You can play weak side very easily. And the matchups are all going to play out relatively similarly.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that.
If they were to play jungle, though,
what
would you say?
I would want you to navigate towards scaling AP channel. Like
yes, Echo, Diana, things like that, right?
Stuff like that. They're people that have had the most success.
Because especially if you're an assassin player mid, like with a Kali, like I think that's the easiest style to play as a jungler. Like champs like that.
Yeah.
Right. Just carry AP junglers. What if you're a mage player? Same thing?
Yep, same thing.
Same thing. Just carry even Karthus, things like that.
Yeah. Yep, Karthus would be good.
Yeah. AP scaling junglers.
What are Karthus? What are AP mages in the jungle? It's really just Karthus, right?
Karthus? Lilia's not really a mage, is she?
No. Yeah, so champs like Lilia would be great.
Yeah.
I think about Cal Casey. He transitioned from... He
played Echo jungle and Lilia jungle with a lot of success.
And he picked up Maokai jungle as well. So he was a...
Maokai jungle, yeah.
We've mentioned Cal Casey before. He's an OS player who was
Mid-laner
Master tier when he joined MLA, was he?
Yep.
And then he got to Challenger.
I don't know if it was Diamond or... I can't remember.
So Diamond to Challenger was a mid lane, and then he converted to jungle, and he was like one of the best Lilias on the server pretty quickly.
Yeah. I truly believe nowadays with the changes to jungle that if you understand, like if you're a laner and you understand lane states, you're honestly probably 70% of the way there.
Because once you know what a good gank and a bad gank is.
And you don't need to worry too much as a
everyone's
scaling
in the camps.
jungler. Like, you don't need to be obsessed about facilitating anyone. Just full clear.
Yeah, you can
be
miss
strong.
a couple of.
And they already know how to skirmish well, like as a mid laner, right? So you don't need to worry about that as much. It's more just clearing your camps, not getting distracted.
All right, that's it for our episode today, guys.
Beautiful.
Good work. Let's keep on improving, keep reviewing, 3-block process, get into the details, as my water bottle there says.
Curious.
And we'll see you next time.